Sure.
Welcome to episode 203
Three.
of Trek Live. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about some Star Trek, obviously. But before we get into that, Bill, how you doing this morning?
Doing great. Happy to be here. Recording again. Looking forward to getting into like a pretty wide discussion. And I think we'll touch a lot of Star Trek here. A lot of different shows.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Doing good. I'm excited as well. I think this is it's good to get back into the swing of things of talking about Star Trek every couple of weeks here on Trek Live. How's your rewatch going? I've seen on Twitter that it's almost done.
It's pretty much done. I'm done with everything. I finished Picard season 2 yesterday, so I'm done through the last completed season. So I'm pausing for now, and I'll watch Strange New World season 1 once it's done. Hopefully that first weekend after the last episode airs. I'm hoping to get it wrapped up then. But for all intents and purposes, it's finished.
98%, yeah.
Yeah, it's. I shared a whole bunch of stuff on Twitter and on the Discord server for those who were there last night from the time we're recording this. So go check that out. If you go to my feed, I'm sure it'll be pinned on Twitter, like a screenshot of my sort of like GPA readout of every episode and seasons ranked and all kinds of stuff. Episode rankings from all the shows. It's not, like I said, it's not totally done. There's already at least, I think, one episode of Strange New Worlds that I, at least on the first go round, my initial reaction would be that that's like easy a top 100 episode. So Strange New World's going to impact a good bit of the rankings and stuff that I do with like the overall combined all the shows episodes. So it's not totally done yet, but I put up everything that is kind of current as of now. And love to hear people's feedback and hear where people disagree, even more interestingly than where people agree. I'm always fascinated to kind of see what like generates the what? Why would he do that?
Yeah.
Kind of responses when I put stuff like that out.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to hear.
And we still need to do a debrief after this because it's been this. I think I checked the date last night. Was it 2020 that you started this one, or?
Yeah. It's kind of funky. Like I kind of COVID and
Stopped,
the world
restarted.
being crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some funkiness to rewatch 3.0 and when it started and everything. But May of 2020, I watched May 11th, 2020. I watched The Man Trap and went through all of TOS starting at that point, and then I kind of just kept going from there. So a little over 2 years, 2 years and 1 month.
Nice.
Minus Strange New Worlds. It took me to do it all, but it's on one hand, I was thinking the other day that I've done it in a year before.
Turning and burning on episodes though.
Exactly, yeah. I mean that the time I remember doing it like almost exactly on a year was pre all the new stuff, so there was less. There was like at least 100 episodes less, 125 episodes less, and I took it slower this time for sure, and I'm kind of glad that I did. When I do start rewatch 4.0 and get into TOS, it's been 2 years at least since I've sat down and really watched those episodes. So, part of one of my favorite things about doing this is giving, if I don't bounce around too much, by the time I come back around to these shows, it's been a while since I watched them, and they can feel fresh again, and I can feel excited about diving into that world again. So that's definitely going to be the case. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But when we do the rewatch recap, I'm looking forward to maybe sharing some of the stuff I put on Twitter. Maybe we can do some screen share stuff.
Oh yeah,
some
definitely.
Of the data and the rankings and all the nitty gritty stuff that I do with tracking it. It's, as I've said before, talking about why to rewatch and why I rewatch and what the benefit is to me. I feel like I need this kind of stuff, like the data and it gives me a reason to watch through fresh eyes and look at things as trying to be there's nothing objective about it. It's totally subjective. It's all me and my personal reaction to it. But trying to like separate myself from how I felt about something 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 2 years ago and watch it fresh. That's kind of my way to force myself to do that. And gives each time around like a fresh mission and helps me. So
definitely excited for that episode coming up in a few weeks for sure, once Strange New World ends. Today's topic is what, Bill? Explain it to...
So we're going to look at episodes with downbeat endings. And this is kind of inspired by the episode of Strange New Worlds that just premiered this week from the time we're recording this. Lift Us to Where Suffering Cannot Reach, which definitely has a downbeat ending. And it kind of got us thinking, just in our kind of offline conversations about the episode and how we felt about it. Just thinking about other episodes that kind of similarly leave us feeling like, wow, that kind of sucked. Not the episode sucked, but the resolution of the situation is like you're getting your crap handed to you a little bit. And there's a decent list of Star Trek entries that do that. This is certainly not a first. But I guess before we do that, I mean, we don't talk much. We're because of our life situations and the way we're doing this for the time being. We're not doing course heading and talking about episodes as they kind of happen. How did you feel about this episode, kind of broadly speaking? And without getting into too much of the weeds, I don't want to get into like a detailed review or anything. But how did you feel about this episode since we're talking about it and it's new and fresh?
It was an interesting one. I think with, like you said, Bill, the downbeat ending, it's tough to rank these episodes because we're so conditioned as people who watch Star Trek and just people who watch and read and experience storytelling in general. Generally, the resolution is positive or semi-positive. But with these types of episodes that we're going to be talking about today, that's not the case. It's like a quote-unquote gut punch at the end. It's just it's a really downbeat type of episode. And in Star Trek, there's been variations of these kind of downbeat, downer ending episodes. Some less positive than others, and some kind of middle of the road, but still not generally positive. But it's an interesting one. It's hard because it's in a group of such positive runs of episodes. Like this first season of Strange New Worlds has been so good, so it's hard to place it in my rankings. I'd probably say 6 at this point. We're through episode 6 at this point, but that's just because it's in the company that it's in. I think it's better than some episodes of Star Trek, previous episodes of Star Trek, but I don't think it's it. And I'm not trying to knock it at all. Like there's some positives. To me, I'm trying not to get into the weeds, but here I go. It has some qualities of TOS. It has some on the nose stuff, commentary stuff that feels really campy and really feels of that time of TOS. So I think it kind of feels right at home with kind of some of the TOS episodes. But that's my thoughts.
There's definitely a TOS quality to the alien civilization being like this technologically advanced, yet almost they evoke like a throwback retro quality of our own history. Like I feel like that's often the case in the original series. So that definitely captured a lot of the spirit of TOS, and I like that. I liked the production design of everything going on in the alien world, and I liked the kind of look back at Pike's career before he was a captain. He's a lieutenant on, I can't remember if they named the ship that he was serving on, but he's a lieutenant on a mission, and he saves this.
Yeah, they didn't mention the ship, but yeah,
this girl, and he has a relationship with her, or there's some sort of, they have at least a connection, and that's kind of stuck with him, and he's meeting an old flame, and kind of gets lured in by that and gets manipulated, and so there's some interesting Pike stuff going on. They kind of further the story with Mbenga's daughter. So there's meat to chew on here. I'm kind of with you. I think it might be my least favorite of the six, but that's saying something. There's certainly there are episodes of Star Trek from 2022 that I think this is superior to.
Yeah,
sure.
Definitely.
And it's certainly perfectly watchable and enjoyable. I'm looking forward to watching it again over and over again over the years. But I have to wrap my head around the way I feel about the ending and the downbeatness of where it leaves us. It definitely got an emotional reaction out of me. I know there's a lot of discussion online. If you go into the Twitterverse and you see what people were saying in the immediate aftermath of it airing, a lot of people kind of unpacking what it means and how it might align with some things going on in the current world in true Star Trek fashion, which is
always
cool.
Leaves us with baggage.
Yeah, and it gives us you mentioned something yesterday, just kind of talking about the experience watching the episode. These Strange New Worlds episodes all kind of end in a way that, like, there's a conversation to have when the episode's over, and that's really cool. I do appreciate that. This is certainly one of them. If you're watching it with somebody, there's going to be a chat to be had when it's over.
Definitely after this episode.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one, but it definitely got us thinking, like I said, and why we're going to be talking about what we're going to be talking about. Thinking about its sort of cousins in the Star Trek canon of kind of leaving us feeling a little empty at the end, or with that gut punch, or where at least there's no victory at the end of the episode. At best it's a draw, or it might even be a defeat for our heroes. So I think we should dive into that and think about other episodes that kind of evoke similar feelings in us, with respect to the whole continuity and the 10 or however many shows there are at this point. What comes to mind most for you? Like, is there a single or a couple episodes that pop most to mind?
There's a couple episodes that come to mind.
Comparisons.
But for me, and it doesn't really compare because it doesn't even have a social component to the episode. But for me, the first episode that came to mind was Lower Decks in The Next Generation. It's an episode where it's got kind of all this more positive side of things, things going on in the episode, but then at the end it does a complete 180. And some of these other episodes that I'll mention do the same thing, but this, I don't know if the Strange New World episode does have something similar to where the first 2/3 of the episode is more positive minded, light, but as the TNG episode. But I think where the similarities come into play is that really downbeat ending that's kind of hard to process, and then that sticks with you and allows you to have a conversation after the episode. So
yeah, I kind of think that's a good comparison. I think the way that Lower Decks begins as sort of the stakes don't appear to be overly high. It's like this episode, I think, of Strange New Worlds begins at a point where it feels like it's kind of a routine, run-the-mill kind of adventure, especially in the aftermath of something like Memento Mori with the Gorn, where the stakes were so high, they were under such pressure, that this kind of felt less heavy, at least for the first, I'd say, half of the episode. And like Lower Decks, in that last 15 minutes or so, things take kind of a darker turn, and it ends with a heavy emotional, swing of the fist. So structurally, I think Lower Decks is a great call, as sort of a partner for this one, with how it leaves you feeling, especially with adjusting its tone throughout the story. Kind of leads you to think it's going to be one thing and takes a hard right in that about last act.
Yeah, there's another episode that I think is actually very similar to the Strange New Worlds episode and how I kind of felt.
Sure.
So for me, the next episode that I'll mention is Co-Genitor from Enterprise. Yes. Is I think what a lot of people are thinking before the Lower Deck stuff, but to me, it's similar to, we build this relationship that we have with this character that comes on board the ship. and then what we get at the end of the episode. So I think that's probably the most the episode that most compares to the Stranger World episode for me.
Yeah, I think Cogenitor came to mind for me. Suddenly Human and Charlie X both came to mind for me, just because they were also both dealing with like children in peril, I guess.
Yeah.
And neither one, Cardassians and Deep Space Nine, they're all very different in terms of what the story surrounding the sort of crisis of the moment is. But all three of them deal, at least in some respect, to like adolescence and the way a given society might deal with children, and all of them, including this one, end at a place of kind of throwing up your arms and like, well, there's not much we can do here. There's no winning, at least.
No.
Yeah, Charlie X is one that I feel like maybe because I just put out like that screenshot, and I'm always kind of self conscious, like, man, what did I like that a lot of people don't? And I give that episode a B, and I feel like I'm higher on it than a lot of people are. It's certainly got problematic elements, and it hasn't aged great in some respects. But it's really kind of powered by that ending for me. I'm really always kind of like, wow, that really sucks the way that ends. Like where they're just kind of sitting on the bridge, like, wow, like
especially early,
nothing to say, nothing to do.
In the show.
Right out of the gate. It's such a foundational episode, just in being so early and establishing what the show's going to be and how it's going to work and the kinds of stories it's going to tell, and to so early on have the crew get their hat handed to them, kind of sets the tone and allows that to be a thing. And it's okay for episodes to end like that sometimes. So that came to mind for me pretty early on, and kind of digesting the episode, thinking about it.
Do you think
for the go ahead.
Do you think these types of episodes are more memorable to people watching? Because it might not even be a great episode or a strong episode, but because it's so, the way it ends is so different to the traditional way a Star Trek episode will end or resolve. Do you think that sticks in the minds of people watching?
I think they do. I mean, for me, completely speaking subjectively, they do tend to contrast well. I can't sit here and say that all these episodes that we might touch on here, like some of the ones I just mentioned, are not super high on my ranks. I think Suddenly Humans, okay, it's perfectly fine, but it's nowhere near my top 100, top 200. But it does stick out to me because of the nature of that ending. So I think just by the nature of the contrast, because so many episodes, while there is like a sizable subset of episodes that do end with that sort of tone, there's 800 of them, depending on how you count them, and the majority of them don't end that way. So these handful do kind of stand out as at least a little different, and can be pretty easily like pulled out of the group. So yeah, I do. I think I can't sit here and say it's like a golden ticket to being a classic. Because not all of them are.
Yeah.
But they do stand out in my memory, at least, and they typically are some of the more interesting ones to talk about because they are different.
And it seems like each series has an episode like this. Like it's a staple of a Star Trek show to have a episode or a storyline end like this. That's not positive. That's not happy. That's not rewarding. That's not expected.
Sure. Well, part of it too is like some of the newer shows, and even Deep Space Nine, because of the serialized nature. Like a lot of episodes end with a WTF moment, and it's because it's a cliffhanger, and it's intended to be a cliffhanger. It's not necessarily like the resolution of the story.
Yeah.
You could say Best of Both Worlds Part 1 has a gut punch of an ending, but it's not really the end of the story. So I feel like that's kind of a different animal. The cliffhangers are a different story, and like Discovery's obviously, Picard too, are loaded with these endings that have the crew on their heels, intentionally so. The episodic entries that do that are really what stand out to me, because they're the final note of a story, is really kind of a different quality than leaving you hanging. But you're right. I think particularly the shows that don't lean as heavily into the serialization all have examples woven through them that end this way. Some maybe more than others. I think TOS does it a lot. The Paradise Syndrome is one that ends with a death.
That's another episode
of a character. Yeah, there's nothing happy about that ending. A Private Little War is another one that ends with them kind of leaving that planet with their arms thrown up, like, we did something. We're not sure if it was right or if it's good, but it's about all we could do. It's a chess move that's designed to level the playing field, not to win the battle. And there's a definite empty feeling at the end of that episode too. So TOS, I think, has a lot of them. And given there's only 79 of them, maybe I haven't done like a numbers crunch or anything. There's no definitive list of them.
Definitely higher percentage.
Maybe it might be a high
because there's only 3 seasons. Yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah.
There are other episodes that are like half, I feel like a gut punch, or not like a gut punch, but like have endings that you don't expect. There's dozens of examples, but I'll use a Deep Space Nine episode, obviously, that has, I'll use In the Pale Moonlight. When he deletes the log entry explaining everything, you don't feel good about it, but you understand it, but again, you don't feel good about it. And there's countless other examples, but I'll just use that as an example because it's kind of a well-known episode.
For sure. It's an iconic ending.
But are there episodes like that where it's not like a true like emotional baggage type of ending, but it's an ending where you don't feel good about it, but you get it, I guess?
Sure. I mean, I think like that. I'm not sure. I mean,
like, I don't know.
There's definitely, that's a whole nother kind of, to me, like, that's almost like another subset of, because the other kind of hallmark quality of the episode of Strange New Worlds we're talking about, kind of sparked this conversation, is that it has that twist in the last.
It's
10
the
minutes
twist.
or so.
I guess that's a better.
Twist.
It's not really. It's not really a downbeat. It's a twist. The twist is kind of a downbeat, but
it leads to the downbeat ending for sure.
Yeah.
It's the twist reveals the quality of this alien society that's going to leave us feeling empty. And there are lots of Star Trek episodes that end in an unexpected fashion, especially, again, TOS. I've talked about this a lot. I feel like TOS is a show that can be kind of defined by a series of stories that resist the urge to present like a straight up villain. It's usually a matter of disconnection or a miscommunication or a lack of understanding, and it's not just something that's out to be bad. And there's often a twist at the end of these TOS episodes, kind of like Twilight Zone episodes, that reveal like, oh, this is what's really going on here. This is where this thing comes from, or this is who this person is, and what their reason for doing what they're doing is, and this is how we connect with them. That happens a lot in the original series. I think that's, like I said, that's kind of a foundational quality to that show. If you really look at the individual episodes, episodes like the Squire of Gothis, when you realize that Trelane is a kid who's like toying with he's playing with his toys and is not behaving, is really what it is. He needs to be punished. He's not just a bad, there's just the challenge is to get the information, not to defeat the bad guy. So yeah, I think there's a load of them. I'd be hard pressed to like sit here and just like pull episodes that compare to that, but you're totally right.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about this before when I talked about my rankings on the Strange New World episode. How does it compare, ranking an episode that has a downbeat to an episode that maybe has a semi good resolution? Because I think endings really, really drive how people feel about episodes and even the ending of shows. I think there's always a bad taste in your mouth when you finish Enterprise or a TV show that's not Star Trek, like Game of Thrones. I know there was like a bunch of people mad at the ending of that show. I think the ending has such a big effect on how we look at the episode. Totally. Bill, does that change your perspective on some of these episodes?
Certainly, yeah. I think the way episodes end is a huge calling card that would indicate like where I would go with like rating or ranking something. But I don't know if I would like just being a positive ending or a downbeat ending or somewhere in between. I don't think is like on its own an indicator. I mean, there are episodes that end in an uplifting fashion that I love and that I don't love, and the same goes true to episodes that are a little more downbeat. There are, like, if I think about things that kind of end in a downbeat fashion, there are like a lot of my upper episodes do kind of have that quality. Like, one of the things that came to mind most for me is Wrath of Khan. Like that, other than the little montage at the very end that's kind of tacked on with the torpedo laying on the Genesis planet. What ends more downbeat than Wrath of Khan does?
True.
And that's pretty darn high on my list. Sitting on the Edge of Forever ends pretty downbeat. The last line of the episode.
That's a TOS style villain with the Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Similitude is my favorite episode of Enterprise. That's not a happy ending.
No.
So yeah. A lot of them are a lot of my favorites do kind of have that quality. I don't know if that's. I certainly wouldn't say it's intentional, but I guess it says something about my own kind of maybe what draws me the most is that complicated feeling at the end of some of these stories. So maybe it does.
Yeah.
Kind of play it.
I guess that's true. I always thought of it as a negative of trying to be able to rank these. It seems like, at least for you, it's more of a positive when the downbeat ending kind of turns into a makes us think, which I think is a bit.
With any of this stuff, it's all in the execution. It's how does it fit with the tone of what preceded it? Like how does it resolve whatever story we just sat with for the last 50 minutes, 25 minutes, depending on the show, and you know what are the qualities of that specific story? It's you know I think it's always in the execution. So yeah, I think. But like when I think of like other things that are right at the top of my list, The Voyage Home is totally not downbeat, and that's really high on my list.
It ebbs and
flows. It's
yeah.
uplifting and like feeling buoyant and like really feeling good about things. That's up there, and that's just as effective an ending to me as the Wrath of Khan is, or the City on the Edge of Forever is. I think The Devil in the Dark ends on a high note. I think that's another one that's like a classic, one of my all-time favorites, and that leaves you feeling good. Like there was a real breakthrough there, and so that's humanity at its best, and Federation at its best. And yeah, it's. I'd have a hard time pinpointing like what's a golden ticket, like I said, to a good review or a good reaction. Both are possible, sure.
Well, I think we can't always be sunshine and rainbows in life.
It's the balance. The fact that Star Trek can be both.
Yeah, in life we can't. It's not all of the stuff that happens to us in our lives is always sunshine and rainbows and happy endings and everything goes right and everything's. It's not like that. And I think there's a relatability to some of these episodes when there's a downbeat ending that it just doesn't go the character's way. It doesn't go the story way. Way.
We all have good days and bad days, and I feel like Star Trek, all these given shows kind of reflect that, and it's not always going to go the way you want it to go. And sometimes it does.
Yeah.
And maybe more often than not it does, but I think it's important. One of the like what do we always talk about? I think one of the things we've talked about the most over the 203 episodes is that Star Trek is a Swiss Army knife. It can do all kinds of things. It can mold and do different tones, and Strange New Worlds is a hallmark to that. It's sort of a testament that Star Trek is still that and can totally embrace those qualities, and that's kind of all represented in this conversation. I think that we can have stories end in all these different ways.
But sometimes I get worried about the casual fan coming into Star Trek thinking that this is a positive outlook on the future of humanity and all those things. Mm-hmm. And I want to tell them, like, hey, no, there's some episodes that are gonna end not the best, and it's gonna make you feel really bad. Mm-hmm. So
it's still a struggle. I mean, it's still there's challenges out there, and it's not always gonna come easy. And yeah, I think it's important for them to offer that counterbalance, and that's my favorite thing about this episode of Strange New Worlds. I think its best quality is that it successfully does that. Like, I think it did do a nice job of presenting that ending and leading us to that last couple scenes is the highlight of the episode for me. For all those reasons, I think it's important for Star Trek to feature that on occasion.
Yeah, you're not asking the Strange New World writers to have this type of episode every couple episodes.
No, not necessarily. You gotta find a balance. All the time, but when you're doing 10 a year, maybe one or two of them should end not, with a complete victory. I think even Memento Mori, actually, Memento Mori ends. I mean, they survived. The last line of the episode is "We survived." But that's about all they did. I mean, they didn't win that battle. They endured it and got away. That's about the best outcome that they could have hoped for at that point. And that's one of the reasons I love that episode so much. Is sometimes you get into these. I think Star Trek, especially later on in the Berman era, would fall into these traps of getting into, whether it's Voyager or the NX-01 gets into a scrap.
Yeah.
Or you get into a scrap with like another alien species or whatever, and it kind of goes by the numbers.
By the book. Yeah.
You shoot phasers a few times, you shoot some torpedoes, and you get out of it and you win the battle. Sometimes with the tech solution, sometimes with just overpowering them. But, I think sometimes the way it ends in Memento Mori, where you're just kind of getting out by the skin of your teeth, that's got to happen every once in a while to, I think, jar the audience. I think these guys aren't infallible. They can be beaten, our heroes. That's why Hugh Who's so great. That's why Balance of Terror is so great. Like, getting to see the crew up against an adversary that is their equal.
Yeah.
Or superior.
Yeah. Any more episodes or anything to mention for downbeat type of endings?
I don't think we mentioned any Voyager ones, but we just did a season 3 mock draft. Did we mention any Voyager ones?
Suddenly Human?
Is
that TNG? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we just did a season 3 mock draft last time we released an episode. And two of those episodes that are actually back to back, I think Real Life has a pretty downbeat ending. And
Big
I think
time.
just an Origin even has a pretty downbeat ending.
Yeah.
From the perspective of that Voss scientist, Dr. Gagan, he does not win that battle.
Nope. Yeah.
And we are on his side, at least from the perspective of Voyager. Yeah. So Voyager certainly has them too. That's just 2 examples. I'm sure there are certainly more out there. Death Wish is another one that's kind of a no-win scenario, kind of a story.
Yeah.
No real happy ending there.
No.
They're all over the place. I mean, Star Trek does this a good bit, and you could dive into the episode list, the 800 some, and just poke and prod for them, and you do it all day.
Yeah. There's some episodes that just aren't a good like Hard Time from
Hard Time,
Deep Space Nine. That's just I might not categorize that as like maybe I will like a downbeat ending, but it's just it's a hard beat episode. I would say it's just a hard watch. I'm not plugging that in on a Saturday night to watch. Definitely not.
No, I mean that's a complicated one. Like, it ends with that great scene with Bashir, his friend, coming to his aid to help him out and
maybe
talking him through it. But he does. I mean, there's no magic wand. I mean, Bashir or there's no medical solution to like wiping away that memory and that experience. He's going to have to live with this, and so there is certainly no easy solution to it, and I love that about it. They don't just wipe it away and give him an out that way. but there is an uplifting quality to it at the same time. Like that's the beauty of that episode, because it has that complicated feeling at the end.
Yeah. Agreed. Final
Any other thoughts?
I really enjoy the notion that Star Trek has not just one formula for an episode. It doesn't have a box that it has to stay in to be, quote unquote Star Trek. I like that we have these different types of story structures, that we can have these downbeat endings, because I think that's why I think Star Trek has been on the air, this long and this many episodes, is because the formula is always changing. There's different types of formulas, different types of structured episodes. There's different endings for episodes. We do get the positive, happy-go-lucky, let's go humanity types of endings of episodes. We also get the hard, charged, tough endings to episodes that I think keep it fresh. And one of the reasons why Star Trek is still on TV today is because these types of structures that they get to use and utilize and explore stuff with.
Yeah, I think the flexibility that they were able to successfully play with over those early years and through the 90s and the early 2000s under Rick Berman's leadership is what unlocked the possibility of doing Star Trek the way they're doing it right now with the different shows. I mean, the reason Lower Decks can exist is that I think over the 50 years they've proven that Star Trek can be a lot of things. Star Trek can be funny. It can exist as a comedy in an hour, and Lower Decks is the sort of the expansion of that idea. Why not a show? If it can do it for an episode, it can do it for multiple episodes, and it can live with that tone. And while I think you've said this before, while maybe because of some of the more serialized elements of some of these new shows keeps us from getting like downright comedy episodes of Discovery or like a true, like it limits some of that flexibility within some of these shows.
Yeah.
But we do get that flexibility in the form of the different shows. These are not carbon copies of carbon copies.
True.
They're distinctly different tones from each. Picard and Prodigy are united under the Star Trek label and existing in the universe, but not much else. They are completely different shows that are aiming at different feelings and vibes, and are trying to evoke different things in an audience. And they both work, as far as I'm concerned, for what they are. And Strange New Worlds, which kind of like led off this discussion, is yet again another completely distinctive kind of Star Trek show. And I think I don't think that would be possible if not for Star Trek's kind of proven ability to exist with these different tones and genres and kinds of episodes.
I guess that's the formula now, right? That the shows are so different that each show and each episode still feel fresh because these shows are so different. Whereas this is kind of a tangent, but I feel like Bill and I are the king of tangents. It just allows to keep these episodes or these shows feeling fresh. Whereas I feel like in the Berman era, like you said, they were TNG Light or various different. They were similar but a little bit different. Whereas
variations on theme.
Yeah, these newer shows are completely different from each other.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they are, and I do think, as I mentioned before, I think some of these other shows have been successful at offering some different flavors and different styles of episodes within their own constraints. Discovery, just thinking like they did a Western with Far From Home. That's vastly different than, say, Unification 3 from season 3.
Yeah,
it's
big
like a
time.
Courtroom kind of like they're just different flavors, but they're within the Discovery umbrella. Maybe it's not as extreme as the Trouble with Tribbles being compared to the Doomsday Machine, but within the constraints of Discovery, there's variations there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also Discovery compared to Lower Decks, which is the far greater variation of flavor for Star Trek.
Yeah.
Currently.
Yeah.
think that about does it. I think
Yeah.
we've kind of covered
I think so.
everything that we're going to cover here today. At least this is a conversation that could go on longer. You know, we could put up an episode guide and like carefully comb through it and pull out episodes and
Yeah.
dive in. That would be a fun thing to do, but it would take a really long time, and yeah, we're not going to do that here today. That's like a.
We want to hear from you. Let us
Yeah.
know what downbeat episodes you liked the most. Bill and I mentioned a few on here, but we'd like to hear from you and the explanation. I know it's easy to just spout out episodes, but I think Bill and I enjoy the why behind it.
Sure.
So definitely do that. The best place to do that is Twitter and our Discord server if you want to keep the discussion going. A lot of discussion on there always. Bill's got great information. I know Bill and I always plug the Discord server, but Bill's Twitter is just chock full of data and episodes and then all the good stuff, the analytics behind it. So definitely check that out. And our Discord server. We will be back as soon as we can. Again, I'm going through a little bit of a life stuff. As Goose lays down next to me. But yeah, we'll be back as soon as we can with more Star Trek discussion. You guys know the drill. The discussion doesn't have to stop here. Twitter and Discord, as I said. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, everybody.